And we're joined by Shota Gvineria from the Economic Policy Research Center of Georgia. Good evening.
Hello, and hello to the viewers of the program.
So, the first and the most important question is, what happens now in Georgia?
Well, that's indeed a $1 million question. I wish I had a good answer for that, but I will try to give you my educated guess on this. Procedurally, what will happen, as you mentioned in your introduction, is that most probably the ruling party will override the veto in the parliament. And the Russian law on agents, this is how we call it in Georgia civil society and more broadly in the public, will enter into the force. But of course, this has far-reaching consequences. And I think that if this happens the way it has been evolving up until today, it will mean that Georgia will go down the irreversible way towards the full authoritarian regimes, the ones like we know is in Minsk or in other places, you know. So this is really, I would say, one of the milestone moments now for Georgia.
Right, but why irreversible? The next parliamentary elections, if I'm not mistaken, are supposed to take place next October, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. And this is most of our friends and partners in Europe and in the functioning democracies do not really understand about Georgia's dynamics and Georgia's political process, that what we're looking at right now in Georgia is the state capture. And the state capture is the term describing a situation where one political group and one political party has full control over all branches of the government and the power in more general terms. You know, there is one party who is fully controlling the executive branch. It's really difficult to understand for our European friends, but you know, there is one party who has all the ministries, all the deputy ministries in the executive government and the prime minister's job. Plus, they have a majority in the parliament to the extent that they can even overrule president's veto without a problem. So they fully control legislative branch. They do control also the judiciary branch, because you know there has been a lot of problems over the years in Georgia's judiciary. We never managed to reform it in a really functioning democratic judiciary system. And plus the electoral system is also under their control. Major strategic economic opportunities, financial channels. So this means that basically if the government decided that they do not care anymore about how ugly it looks and what will be the reaction of our Western partners, they do not seek the legitimacy of those elections from our Western partners. They do not seek to conduct the elections in a free and fair way that is a standard for the European Union. Then they have all the tools and resources to announce the results of that elections as they find fit. And this is something that many Georgians are afraid of, and this is something that many my colleagues, experts, and the people in the civil society see this bill in this context, because this bill actually gives the government an opportunity to oppress, silence, and undermine and discredit the watchdog organizations that have to report later for that particular elections.
I understand, but what has changed during this past year? Because last year, the Georgian Dream tried to push on through with the very same law. They didn't succeed because they were afraid of this mass protests, and they are clearly not afraid now. So what's the reason for it?
Well, I see this in a wider context, because I'm absolutely confident that the Georgian Dream government is fully coordinating their actions with Russia. And we know that this is a Russia bill. It has been originated in Russia. It has been in force in Russia for quite a few years now. We know what results it actually resulted in. And more broadly, this law has been initiated in many countries where Russia enjoys influence, and where we can say that there are Russia-friendly governments or proxy governments for the Russian Federation in the uh, uh, Balkan countries, in some of the Central Asian countries, even in one of the occupied territories of Georgia, in Abkhazia, the so-called parliament initiated the same bill. So that's a process. And this process is basically driven and guided by the dynamics of war in Ukraine. And because right now Russians have a positive, let's say, trend in managing the battlefields in Ukraine, and they feel that they have the power to influence their neighbors, more neighbors, in a way that they make full use of the authoritarian axis that they have in wider Europe. Then that's the right moment, because they are on offensive and they are more or less successful. They have their friends in European Union that has been hampering decisions for helping Ukraine. They have their friends elsewhere in far right parties, which help them to somehow uh, stumble and hamper democratic processes, decision-making processes, and this is why they feel much stronger today than they felt a year ago. So now they think they have the moment with the upcoming elections in European countries, European elections in the United States, that now is the moment to finalize this job in the neighboring countries and go on the full offensive for their authoritarian rule.
That's quite interesting, because it seems to me that they've been loosening their grip on Armenia, but then again, as you say, they're holding strong onto Georgia. Now I'd like us to listen to one of Polish journalists, Jakub Mielnik, talking about the current situation in Georgia. If we have this soundbite, I'd like us to listen to it.
They see that public discontent is so widespread that they have no chance for re-election. If they can implement this law, they can use it as a tool to crush the opposition, which is going to take over power, and keep this power. And this is also very important from the position of people who are behind the ruling party in Georgia.
Right.
Party was created by oligarch who is closely tied with the Kremlin, and people in the Georgian government, maybe not all of them, but majority of them, are clearly Russian assets exercising Russian interests in the Caucasus region.
Right. So do you agree with our guest that this law can actually crush the opposition? Because I have the impression now that the protests have gained such a momentum that they are actually a threat to the ruling party, and that young people can crush the Georgian dream. But maybe I'm being here a bit too optimistic.
Well, what I would say is that basically this law does not necessarily target opposition parties. To give you the wider context, as I explained, more or less the Georgian Dream, the ruling party, they succeed in controlling the political landscape, because the opposition is quite weak, and the ruling party has been using the monopoly on power, which I described a few minutes ago, to weaken opposition. So we cannot
Yes.
fully blame opposition for being weak, because there is a reason to that, because this monopoly on power and cracking down the opposition for years and years, of course, left its mark on the political landscape. There is no level field, so it's easy to say there is a weak opposition, but this opposition has been in this asymmetric fight for more than a decade now, so of course they're weakened. But this law, this particular law, is targeting specifically the civil society.
The civil
Georgia,
society, of
which
course,
is very vibrant,
I agree with you. As we have to
and
finish,
the media.
as we'll have to finish in a second, I'll have this very short question to you. The upcoming elections, is there any chance for a change in Georgia? A few words, please.
Well, I would say that there is a very high chance that the ruling party will be punished for its Russian-leaning authoritarian regimes. Nobody will vote for that, but I have a little confidence that these elections will be free and fair. So we will have to fight for the choice that people will make.
So, an optimistic note, but with a pinch of salt. Shota Gvineria from the Economic Policy Research Center of Georgia was our guest tonight. Thank you so much.